Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about my top 20 favourite films from 1987. These are all in accordance with the release dates from IMDb, and again, there's no real true list to these films. These are just my personal favourites, no right or wrong, just solely based on opinion. So that being said, I'm going to get into quite a few honourable mentions. Did actually see quite a lot of films from this year. So I'm going to get straight into the films that didn't quite make the list for me. So first honourable mention is Cry Freedom, starring Kevin Kline and Denzel Washington. Great sort of African drama. Really enjoyed this one. Next up is Can't Buy Me Love, starring a young Patrick Dempsey. Sort of like a high school comedy film. Patrick Dempsey sort of like this geek in it who pays the best looking girl in school to go out with him. Bit of a liar reveal film, but still enjoyable. Next up is Matewan. Really good, underrated sort of work movie. Really good period drama as well. Set in America. Some really good action scenes in this towards the end. Hugely enjoyable. Massively underrated. Check out if you've not seen it. Next honourable mention is Angel Heart with Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro. Really good creepy movie, this one. Definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. Stand and Deliver. Really good sort of educational film about this teacher who he's pretty much been assigned with a class of basically no-hopers. He's teaching them calculus. He manages to get them all to pass the exam, but the board thinks everybody's cheated. And it's sort of like about the investigation into that. Just hugely underrated, great film. Next one is Rita Sue and Bob 2. Just this classic British comedy film from the 80s. Some of it, for me, doesn't really hold up nowadays, but it's still entertaining. Sort of about this couple and the husband's having an affair with the two babysitters that come over. It's still a very humorous film, but it's got some sordid topics it covers. A little bit of racism in there as well, but still an entertaining film. And next up is sort of a guilty pleasure film, and that's Mannequin with Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall. This is just classic 80s in a bottle, this film. So pretty much Andrew McCarthy's designs this mannequin that comes alive with this Egyptian spirit played by Kim Cattrall, and they just sort of like fall in love, and he's got to like sort of keep it hidden as well from the store owners, and it just leads to like hijinks. It also gives us that Starship song, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. But yeah, as I said, not a great movie, but a bit of a guilty pleasure. Next up for me is a Disney film, The Brave Little Toaster. This sounds like an absolute kids film, but it's so much more than that. It's got such good designs in it, such a good story. Adults can enjoy this one too. There's a lot there. The title sort of sounds too kid-friendly, but this film in no way talks down to kids. It's got a great voice cast as well. A great fun family film. Next honourable mention is Roxanne with Steve Martin and Daryl Hannah. Sort of a modern retelling of the Cyrano Bergerac tale. Next up is the first Stakeout movie. Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez just sort of have great chemistry in this buddy cop film. Next honourable mention is one for me that just didn't quite make my list, and that's John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. really, really good creepy film with Donald Pleasance. Hugely, hugely entertaining. Next up is Catherine Bigelow's little horror film, Near Dark. Just really, really good creepy film. Does a lot with a little. You got Bill Paxton in there as well, who's great in everything he's in. Check this one out if you've not seen it. Next up is Joe Dante's Inner Space. Just this wacky sort of science fiction movie with Martin Short and Dennis Quaid. Meg Ryan as well. So pretty much Dennis Quaid's like this scientist, and they're developing like this shrinking technology, and he's ready to be inserted into this animal, and then he ends up getting inserted into Martin Short. Martin Short thinks he's going absolutely crazy. Just a fun film. If you like Joe Dante's movies, like Gremlins and that, it's one way of checking out. Next honourable mention for me is Schwarzenegger in the Running Man. Great sort of sci-fi film set in the future, sort of like predicted as well the way television was going to go. Not as brutal as this, but television shows nowadays have definitely gone down the route that this film goes. But yeah, massively, massively fun sci-fi film. Next honourable mention for me is Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Really, really creepy film. Some of the designs of the Cenobites in this film are just absolutely terrifying, and in some of the sequels as well. But yeah, I remember seeing the video cover for this in Blockbusters when I was a kid and just being blown away, like, oh my god, what is that film? Glad I didn't see it when I was a kid, because it probably would have scarred the hell out of me. But really, really good, underrated horror film. Next up is Michael J. Fox in The Secret of My Success. Just a fun little 80s movie. You got Helen Slater there as well, fresh off role as Supergirl, which wasn't a very good film. But yeah, sort of follows like Michael J. Fox and how he wants to be, his sort of adventures in trying to be a success. It is a really good family film. If you like Back to the Future as well, it's sort of that type of film. Not as good as Back to the Future, but that set the bar very high. But this one's definitely worth a watch as well. Next up is Spielberg's drama Empire of the Sun. Great war film, this, starring a young Christian Bale. The cast of this is fantastic. You got John Malkovich in there as well, a young Ben Stiller as well. This is just one of those movies that has an epic scope to it. Story-wise, it didn't really engage me that much, but it's a great performance by the young Christian Bale in this. Definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. Next honourable mention is Fatal Attraction of Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. So Michael Douglas pretty much plays this guy who has an affair with Glenn Close's character, and she just becomes absolutely obsessed with him and makes his life a living hell. Just a really, really good creepy thriller. Next honourable mention for me is the British film Withnail and I. Great performances in this by Richard E. Grant and Paul McGann. And you've got Richard Griffiths in there as well, who's fantastic in everything he's in. Probably was most famous for playing Uncle Vernon in the Harry Potter films. Yeah, just absolute powerhouse performances in this, about two struggling actors. Massively, massively enjoyed it, but again, just didn't quite make the list for me. Next one is No Way Out with Kevin Costner and Gene Hackman. Great sort of spy film, this, with a lot of twists and turns. It's very 90s, sort of, even though it was a little bit ahead of its time in that way, but it's one of those films that was probably played a lot in the 90s, and yeah, just hugely entertaining. Great cast, and as I said, lots of twists and turns in this one. Definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. My next honourable mention is the film that actually won Best Picture this year, and that is The Last Emperor. Not a hugely engaging film, but the scope of it and the way it was made is just absolutely stunning. Can see why it won Best Picture, but not one of my favourites from this year. Just didn't make the list for me. Still worth checking out though. But yeah. My last honourable mention is Christopher Columbus's Adventures in Babysitting. Just an absolute fun film. This was like the sort of start of those films he was doing. Those early films in the 90s, like Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire. But yeah, stars Elizabeth Shue. First sort of film to sort of feature the Thor character in a strange way with Vincent D'Onofrio. But yeah, it's worth a watch. It's fun and entertaining. It's one of those those harmless films. Definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it though. So those are my honourable mentions. I'm going to get straight into the list now and kick it off with number 20. Number 20 for me is a film that doesn't really fill me with too much excitement, but there's a lot of women that love this film. But the few times I have seen it, I did enjoy it. The soundtrack to it is absolutely amazing, and that is Dirty Dancing. Yeah, what can I say about this film? It's sort of got this film's got a very sort of blatant, obvious target audience that it plays to, but I still admire the film for how it's made. Patrick Swayze's absolutely great in this, and sort of attracts this young girl who wants to sort of be a dancer, but he's sort of, his style of dancing's like frowned upon and not a bit loose and let off the chain for most people. But there comes a situation where he needs a dancer to step in and help him with a routine, and he takes this girl under his wing and teaches her the moves. As I said, the soundtrack's absolutely on point. Time of My Life, the Eric Carmen song "Hungry Eyes" as well is absolutely great and a great sequence. Yeah, just an entertaining film, but as I said, I couldn't really leave it off the list because it is very well made. But yeah, that's my number 20 pick. So coming in at number 19 for me is a film I used to watch a lot growing up in senior school, and that is Spaceballs. Doesn't hold up as much in terms of comedy nowadays, but as a kid I enjoyed the hell out of this film. Sort of Mel Brooks' spoof of the Star Wars films that came out at the time, a few years prior. You've got a great cast in there as well. You've got Mel Brooks, as well as directing it, also starring in it, John Candy, Rick Moranis. Bill Pullman's in there as well. Joan Rivers makes a cameo as, not a cameo, but is in there sort of like as the C-3PO character. Just tons and tons of fun. It's one of those films where the jokes just come at you like a million miles an hour and they never sort of run out of steam. But yeah, as I said, not everyone's cup of tea, but you can probably get something out of it. It still is quite funny. So coming up next for me at the number 18 spot is the film that won Best Actress this year, and that is Moonstruck with Cher and Nicolas Cage. Great romantic drama, this one. So it sort of follows Cher's character, who's a widow, and her fiance. She ends up sort of forming a bond and falling in love with her fiance's brother, played by Nicolas Cage. Yeah, just a great performance by him as well. I know most of recent times he's not churned out the best films, but the ones that are few and far between, he's absolutely great in. He's in another film as well, further on in this list. That's one of my favourite comedies as well. But yeah, Moonstruck, definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. I'm not a big fan of musicians making that turn into acting. I know a lot of stars have tried to do it nowadays, but it doesn't really work for me. It's too distracting and takes you out of the film a little bit. But Cher does a great job. She's in another film on the list as well, a little bit further on, and fully worthy of the Oscar. But yeah, definitely check it out if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me is the film that won Best Actor this year, and that is Oliver Stone's Wall Street. Michael Douglas, Charlie Sheen, Daryl Hannah. A lot of people sort of have complaints about Daryl Hannah's performance in this. It's been criticised as being a bit bland. I can see that, but it didn't take me out of the film. It's a great sort of stockbroker type film. Michael Douglas as Gordon Gekko, he's absolutely phenomenal in this film. One of my favourite performances by him. Fully worthy of the Oscar. Terence Stamp as well, probably most famous for playing General Zod in the Superman movies, is great in nearly everything he's in as well. Absolutely love this. Martin Sheen, Charlie Sheen's dad's in there as well, playing his on-screen dad. Yeah, just another really good Oliver Stone film coming off Platoon. Yeah, just really, really good, entertaining, powerhouse acting film. The next one for me, coming in at the number 16 spot, is George Miller's The Witches of Eastwick. I absolutely love this film. It entertains the hell out of me. Stars Cher, Susan Sarandon and Michelle Pfeiffer, and Jack Nicholson as well, in one of my favourite performances by him. So it pretty much follows these three women in the town they live in, and one of them's got a lot of children, one of them's got one child, and one of them hasn't got a child. And there's this house in this town that's sort of been a bit dormant for years, and it finally gets bought by Jack Nicholson's character, who nobody in the film can seem to remember his name at the start of it, which is just such a great scene. The editing in that sequence is absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely love it. And yet they do remember his name, which is Daryl Van Horn, which is a very, very unusual name. And he sort of becomes this womanizer to all three of them. He ends up sort of having sexual endeavours with all of them. And they all just sort of like want to sort of take a little bit of revenge on him in the form of witchcraft, which leads to an absolute brilliant sequence towards the end. I don't know how they film some of that stuff. It's just absolutely insane. But yeah, as I said, massively entertaining film with a fantastic cast. So coming up at the number 15 spot for me is a film I only saw a few years ago. I only heard about this film a few years ago, and it's a great film to sort of watch at Halloween if you love the sort of Universal monster movies, and that is The Monster Squad. The artwork on this doesn't really do the film justice, in my opinion. Well, it does, but it makes it look a bit like a cartoon. It's a live action film, but it pretty much is. It's the Goonies with monsters, pretty much. You've got a gang of kids who start to call themselves the Monster Squad, and they sort of learn all this trivia about old school Hollywood Universal monsters. And all of them sort of end up coming back and entering their town. You've got the Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and the Wolfman. It was only really missing the Invisible Man, but Yeah, just absolutely entertaining film. Written by Shane Black and Fred Decker. Just a great fun film. Is the best way to sum it up. Um, it's got a lot of token characters in it. You've got the kids, and they're sort of in their sub branch of tokenism, as it were. You've got the cool kid, the nerdy kid, the fat kid. It's as on PC as that is. But for the time that this was made, that was just the way it was. You've got the scary German guy, who they actually refer to as the scary German guy, who actually isn't that bad of a guy once the characters get to know him. But yeah, it's a hugely fun, entertaining film. And who knew that Wolfman's got nods. So coming up next for me, the number 14 spot is Broadcast News. Great drama film, this. Sort of following this news station, and it's got three news presenters and researchers that all have their different ways of how they approach the job. And Holly Hunter in this is just absolutely great. Just her absolute tantrums and her passion just comes through from the character that I just absolutely loved. Albert Brooks and William Hurt are great in this as well. You've got a great cameo from Jack Nicholson as well as one of the newscasters. Not in the film very much, which I actually kind of like. As weird as that sounds, it should be like, oh well, Jack Nicholson's in it, you'd want to see more of him. But it's played very subtly, and I enjoy subtle in films. But yeah, definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. One of the best films from the year, definitely. So coming on up next for me, at the number 14 spot, is Timothy Dalton's first outing as James Bond in The Living Daylights. We only got two films from Dalton, Living Daylights and License to Kill, which was a shame. I would have loved to have seen him cast in the View to a Kill instead of Roger Moore. But yeah, this is a really sort of grounded Bond. Timothy Dalton is, in my unpopular opinion, he is the best Bond. He's my favourite Bond. Absolutely love him in films where he shows up, like Flash Gordon and The Rocketeer. But yeah, no, it's it just seemed to do what the first Daniel Craig Bond film did. It just sort of turned it around and took it a little bit more seriously. Yeah, just a hugely entertaining Bond film. I find his two to be the most underrated. Yeah, just a great spy film. Massively enjoyed it. So coming up next for me at the number 12 spot is Evil Dead 2. A sort of sequel and a remake of the first Evil Dead by Sam Raimi. I don't know if he just wanted to sort of tell the same story again, but with better effects or better... I don't know. It was just... it just feels too similar to the first one, but in no way detracts from it. Sort of follows the same sort of similar premise where these friends go to this cabin, discover the Book of the Dead, read a passage, and all fucking hell breaks loose. Yeah, the effects in Evil Dead 2 are absolutely insane. So much blood towards the end of the film. Just absolutely batshit entertaining film. Probably the film that Bruce Campbell's most famous for. Yeah, just this film's just off its tits. Insane. Just great. If you've not seen it, check it out. It's not one to watch while you're eating, shall we say, but it's one of those over-the-top films, very similar to me in the same vein as sort of Day of the Dead and Brain Dead. Those types of zombie films, just very, very in your face, over the top, very unapologetic as well. And I love it for that. Just a great, entertaining horror film. Yeah, the standout scene to me is probably the scene where Bruce Campbell's Ash gets his hand possessed, and the hand just develops a personality of its own, and he has to cut it off with a chainsaw. Yeah, it's insane. If you've not seen it, check it out. Great film. So coming up next for me, at the number 11 spot, is another penned John Hughes film, and that is Some Kind of Wonderful. Again, just another great script from him. Didn't direct this film though, but it just oozes the John Hughes quips and script and dialogue. Just absolutely great. It's another film kind of similar to Lucas for me, in the fact that it's someone in love with someone who's in love with someone else, kind of story. So it follows Eric Stoltz's character, Keith, who's in love with Leah Thompson's character, who's already in a relationship with a boyfriend who, this guy's just an absolute dirtbag, scumbag. He's cheating on his girlfriend. He's just an absolute piece of filth. And Stoltz has his best friend, Watts, who's actually secretly in love with him and doesn't want to tell him. But what keeps you engaged is what's the outcome going to be in the film. Just some great character pieces in this as well. One of my favourite scenes is with Keith and his father. And his father has a sort of planned out career for his son and what he wants him to do. He wants him to go to university. He's currently working as a mechanic, but he wants his son to go to university, and he just forces all this pressure onto his son, and he says, you're coming up to 18, 17 now, you're 18, when these are the decisions that I wanted you to make. And Keith's response is, well, I'm 19 and then I'm 20. When does my life belong to me? I need to make my own choices and do what I want in life, not what you want me to do. Wonderfully written. Check it out if you've not seen it. Next up for me is one of my favourite Robin Williams films, and that is Good Morning Vietnam. Initially, when I first saw this, I didn't really like it. It didn't really do much for me. I didn't get it. I think I was far, far too young. I saw it at the same time I saw Good Will Hunting, and I didn't really like that film either, but it went far, far too high over my head for me. Far too young to sort of appreciate the film's themes. But yeah, Good Morning Vietnam. Robin Williams is just firing at all pistons in this film. He's a radio presenter in Vietnam who all the soldiers that listen to him absolutely love. They just think he is the funniest. But the officers that are above Williams' ranking really, really do not approve of him. They just want any excuse to take him off the airwaves. They just find him offensive and a liability, really. And he ends up getting involved with a Vietnamese girl whose brother's been targeted. So the second half of the film's pretty much him trying to save this girl and her brother. But it's the radio stuff for me that absolutely clicks with me, that I absolutely really enjoyed. He does eventually get replaced by this guy who thinks he's so funny, but he just isn't. He's about as funny as cancer, to be honest. He just absolutely has no sense of humour whatsoever. But definitely check this one out if you've not seen it. It's a great, great little film with Robin Williams that I absolutely love. So coming up next for me at the number 9 spot is Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys. Saw this film fresh from seeing Stand By Me because I was really impressed with Corey Feldman and Kiefer Sutherland in that film. This is just the total opposite. As grounded as that film is, this is just pure horror. Sort of adventure type movie. The Goonies meets Fright Night in a way. But yeah, so it follows this family that moved to this new sort of like beach on the waterfront town, and there's this fairground there, and also inhabited the town is pretty much a gang of young vampires. David, the older brother from the family, gets sort of taken in by them, and they pretty much start to transform him into this vampire. I won't spoil the end as to who the head vampire is, but the way it sort of subtly has that rule in the film where a vampire cannot enter your home without being invited first. That gives you a clue as to who it is, but I absolutely loved it for that. It's really, really good and subtly done. On a second viewing, you notice it more. But yeah, check it out if you've not seen it. It also stars the two Coreys as well. This was probably the best film they've been in, probably followed closely by License to Drive. But this is this is the best film the two of them did together. As I said, one of the better Joel Schumacher movies as well. This Flatliners and Falling Down for me, some of his best outside of the dreadful Batman ones he did. But yeah, check it out if you've not seen it. If vampires are your thing, it's better than Twilight. I'm just going to say that. Yeah. So coming up next for me at the number 8 spot is Lethal Weapon. Directed by Richard Donner, starring Danny Glover and Mel Gibson. The quintessential buddy cop movie, in my opinion. The two of them just have absolute great chemistry in this. Gary Busey's in there as well, who's just off the hook. Absolutely entertaining actor to watch. Just absolutely crazy. The soundtrack as well, phenomenal. I love the saxophone that always turns up in these types of movies as well. It just adds that extra charm to it. Really, really dark character as well, played by Mel Gibson in this as well, who's a widower who's sort of contemplating suicide as well in the film, and it gives him this sort of, I don't want to say a buzz, but it just alters him when he's doing his job, and when he's on the job, he's just off the chain, and you don't know what he's going to do. It's such a good performance and such a good film. The sequel's great as well. Lethal Weapon 2, 3 and 4 are okay, but the first two are definitely the two best competent ones made. So coming up next for me at the number 7 spot is Coen Brothers film, Raising Arizona, with Nicolas Cage. This is the one I was talking about. That's one of my favourite comedies, also starring Holly Hunter. So this is pretty much about a redneck played by Nicolas Cage who keeps getting arrested for doing all these burglaries and robbing shops. And Holly Hunter there is the policewoman who's taking his picture every time he's brought into custody. And she ends up breaking up with her boyfriend, and the two of them just sort of hit it off and get married. when he gets released. But the only thing is the two of them really want children, but they can't have children for medical reasons. So they find out that there's a rich millionaire who's had quintuplets, and they think, well, he's got more than enough on his hand. He's not really going to miss one, so let's kidnap one. Let's kidnap one of the babies. And the film is just basically a giant chase to get this baby back. The bounty hunter is just absolutely terrifying in this film. It just leads to such great comedy. You've got John Goodman in there as well as one of his friends that escapes from prison. Just massively fun film. It made me want to watch it again the first time I saw it because I just enjoyed it that much. But yeah, check it out if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me, at the number 6 spot, is The Princess Bride. This is just another great Rob Reiner film, coming off directing Stand By Me. Great fantasy film, this one, that doesn't go too over the top with its visuals, but it's more comedy focused. I remember seeing this film as a kid on TV. It's another film I saw on TV when I was younger and didn't catch the name of it. And of course, there was no internet at the time to do the research to find out. It was just when it was played again a few years later that I managed to catch the name. But what's fascinating about this film to me is whenever people I meet people and talk about this film, what I find is that if you saw this film when you were younger, you absolutely love it. But if you see the film as an adult, it doesn't do much for you. I just find that really, really fascinating. So it follows Wesley and Buttercup, who are these two people that fall in love, and they get separated when Wesley has to go out to sea, and Buttercup ends up becoming engaged to Prince Humperdinck. And it just leads to some fantastic characters we meet along the way, and finding the two of them to get back together. Mandy Patinkin's character, who's looking for the man with 6 fingers who killed his father. Wally Shawn as well, who just says the word inconceivable so entertainingly. You've got Andre the Giant in there as well. Billy Crystal, Christopher Guest, Mel Smith, the late great Mel Smith as well. Just hugely entertaining film. Check it out if you've not seen it, and it'd be interesting to see if you like it or not. It's one for me though that was sort of like a childhood staple once I found out what it was called. But yeah, check it out if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me, the number 5 spot, is Stanley Kubrick's war film, Full Metal Jacket. A film of two halves, this one, for me. The first half takes place at the boot camp, and the second half sort of takes place in the heat and the heart of the war. For me, the half that I prefer is the boot camp. I think that goes as well for most people. That's not to detract from the second half. The second half's still fantastic. But for me, the selling point to this is all the stuff with the drill instructor, who gives possibly one of the greatest performances I've ever seen an actor give. I believe the actor was an actual drill instructor as well. But there's something about his performance that translates so well to film. His experiences. Just hugely entertaining with the fast, rapid insults. It's just like, oh my god, you can't even keep up with it. It's just how does this guy's mind work? It's so fascinating as to how he can. He's in a room, the barracks, with these soldiers, and he can just come up with the most insulting things ever out of nowhere. Yeah, just a fantastic war film. I just love some of the Crips as well. The character breakdown of Private Pyle as well is just absolutely tragic. He's letting himself down, which the drill instructor picks up on very, very quickly. And instead of punishing Private Pyle, he punishes the rest of the squad. And it just leads to some of the most heartbreaking stuff you've seen, and it's sad to see someone descend into this mental loss of themselves and absolutely lose it towards the end. But it's captured masterfully on film. The second half of the film is pretty much takes place slap bang in the Vietnam War, and we get to see the soldiers from the boot camp now set free in the war. As I said, it's not as good and as engaging as the first half, but it still stacks together to be a fantastic film. Check it out if you've not seen it. Yeah, just an absolute great one. So coming up next for me at the number 4 spot is Brian De Palma's The Untouchables. Not a film I loved the first time I saw it. I know I sound like a broken record saying that, but one that grew on me over time. So it sort of tries to follow the police trying to find something to pin on Al Capone during the Prohibition in the early 20th century. Robert De Niro as Al Capone is just absolutely great. The scene at the table with the baseball bat is just terrifying. So pretty much Al Capone was sort of dealing in alcohol when it was illegal, and the police just have absolutely no evidence to convict him. They know it's him. It's just in a court of law, they don't have anything to support convicting him, and they form this sort of little band with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery, and they call themselves the Untouchables, and they sort of start like a little vigilante group within the police. Just some great, fantastic scenes in this as well. There's a death scene in it. I won't spoil whose. 2 in particular, one that takes place in an apartment and another one that takes place in a lift. They just absolutely stick with you. Some of the great shootout scenes in this as well. The one on the stairs, to just, again, not to try to get into spoilers with it, is just absolutely fantastic. And how they do eventually get Al Capone is so smart and so clever. Check it out if you've not seen it. Probably my second favourite De Palma film, just behind Scarface for me. But yeah, it's fantastic. Check it out if you've not seen it. So coming in at the number 3 spot for me is the film that John Hughes actually directed this year, and that was Planes, Trains and Automobiles. Steve Martin and John Candy both star in this, but they could not be more opposite in the film. It's sort of like an odd couple type film. We follow Steve Martin, who's in New York, and he's trying to get back home to Chicago for Thanksgiving. And he's got everything planned, the flight's planned, everything should go smoothly. But of course, everything that goes wrong can go wrong. And he ends up getting stuck with John Candy's character, who is just this absolutely lovable guy. You can't be angry at him, but he just manages to get on Steve Martin's nerves the entire time. The chemistry between the two of them is just so good and so underrated as far as movie double act chemistry goes. Just absolutely fantastic. The end of the film as well just leads to some of the most heart-wrenching stuff, particularly with John Candy's character. When you find out a little bit more about him, not to get into spoilers, but check this film out if you've not seen it. It's absolutely entertaining as hell. I loved it so much, and that's why it's number 3 for me. So coming in at number 2 for me is John McTiernan's action film Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. The premise to this film is a simple one, yet it is so effective. It's pretty much a gang of soldiers that are sent in to perform this rescue in this jungle, and there's an alien entity that's hunting them all the way through, picks them off one by one. Just a great action sci-fi film, this one. One of Schwarzenegger's best. Masterfully directed by John McTiernan, who went on to direct my favourite film of 1988, but I won't disclose that just yet. Just a great environment film as well. Like, you feel as if you're in the jungle with these guys on their mission. The soundtrack, the music as well is so great. It's so jungle-esque as well. It just really, really creates this vegetation environment that you're in. I loved it. The lines in this as well. The one lines from Arnold, just stick around, get to the chopper, are just so memorable and so fun. It's violent as well. It's gritty and it's violent. The deaths, the way the Predator kills the soldiers, are so creative and so inventive. Just entertainment through the roof with this one. Not really a bad thing to say about it, really, on the whole. Check it out. Great action film. Another sort of really good hybrid of the two genres of sci-fi and action. Check it out if you've not seen it, and do yourself a favour. You won't be disappointed. So coming in at the number 1 spot for me from 1987 is Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop. I've got a bit of history with this film. I remember as a kid sort of like seeing a cartoon of it and toys in the shops, like on the shelves of RoboCop. I didn't actually watch the cartoon or collect any of the toys when I was younger, but the name RoboCop was very present when I was younger. Hadn't seen the film. It was on TV one night when I was about 8 years old, and it was on too late, so we recorded it and I watched it the next day. And I was not prepared for this film as an 8-year-old. One of the most violent experiences with a film, I can safely say, getting into it. Was not ready for the gore in this film. You've got the Ed 209 malfunction in the film. You've got the death of Alex Murphy, which is horrific. You've got the death of one of the bad guys in this film. He falls into a vat of toxic waste. The film's pretty much a revenge film. There's this gang of criminals, and they pretty much pride themselves on killing police. Pretty much. And we're introduced to Alex Murphy, played wonderfully by Peter Weller. And he meets a very, very tragic and violent end while trying to take down these criminals, led by Clarence Boddicker, played by the brilliant Kurtwood Smith. It was such a strange scenario to see him in this film, and then really the next other big thing I knew him from was playing Red in that 70s show. But yeah, and so the sort of government head of the police, which is called OCP, sort of have come up with this scheme to create a robotic police officer, but they need a volunteer to test it on, which is Alex Murphy, which because he dies, they can do it. So they build him into this robot, but what they don't anticipate is that he still has his memories and we still have these great flashback sequences from him as well, and he remembers how he died and how he seeks revenge on the criminals that got him as well. So he's given 3 prime objectives, which is pretty much like uphold the law, protect the public, and there's another one as well. But there's a Directive 4 as well, which is classified, which we find out leads to something a lot higher within the corporation. And it leads to such a great, fantastic finale as well. The film's got such good special effects in it as well. The last special effect in the film doesn't really hold up, which involves a death, which I won't spoil. But you've got great practical effects. The blood and gore is absolutely fantastic. You've got stop motion in there as well. Just a film I absolutely love. As I said, the first time I saw it, I was just a bit too traumatized by it and couldn't really watch it that many times. But then I made myself watch it again and got desensitized to it. But it is, it's massively, massively entertaining. Another great sci-fi film from the 80s. Yeah, hugely enjoy it. It's got 2 sequels and a remake. I've not seen the remake. RoboCop 2 is okay, and RoboCop 3 is interesting in a bad way. It's just really, really weird. It just feels so watered down compared to the first one. But it's still weirdly so bad it's so good, entertaining type film, the third one. But yeah, check the first one out. The first one is an almost flawless piece of action / unintentional horror film. Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's my favourite from 87. So definitely check it out if you've not seen it. So yeah, that is my list from 87. Another year that churned out some great masterpieces. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there and say thanks very much for watching, and I'm going to be back soon with my top 20 favourite films from 1988. So yeah, please subscribe if you do want to see more videos, and yeah, take care, and I'll see you soon for the next one.